I'm inspired by this actual Korean martyr couple that I think you'd be inspired by too. Their names are Lugartha Lee and John Yu. Now, this couple is not your typical couple because they were actually martyred as Josephites, meaning they had a Josephite marriage. Joseph and Mary, they chose not to partake in the procreative act. So this couple actually both individually wanted to be consecrated lay, but they chose to get married because during the time in Korea in the 1800s, Confucianism was the main culture of the entire country. And at the time, by the time someone was 16, you were by law required to get married. So this couple chose, under the priest's blessings, to get married. They are both a very beautiful man and woman. The temptation of lust probably existed. It wasn't easy for them to remain chaste. But the reality is they did. They were faithfully chaste until the very end because they both died during the persecution after they were caught. This is in 1801 and 1802. And so there's a very beautiful story where Lugartha, she writes a long letter. They're both captured, they're both in prison, and John made a promise to her that they would be martyred together. But ultimately what ends up happening is that he ends up dying first. They were in separate prison cells because she was with the ladies and he was with the men. But she wrote a very touching letter to him. And in this letter, what I found profound is that she was faithful to calling him brother. Now, I'm not saying that I'm encouraging this for married couples today. Rather, and I'm not saying that married couples today should have Josephite marriages because you need to engage in a procreative act for a marriage to be consummated, for it to be legitimate. And also, it's not helping these days with the very low birth rate. Like that needs a lot of help. So the more children, the merrier, right? But I am saying that there's also a need for this society to learn the virtue, the art of chastity. And I think that's been lost. Now, this couple, while they take it even further with celibacy, I think they share with us that it's possible, right? It's possible as a married couple or as even if you're not married, to order your passions for God and not to give in like some beasts, right? Because that's the problem with the contraceptive culture is that, we have tendencies, we have needs, and we have to fulfill them. So don't tell me that my pleasures are and my emotional experience is something that I need to contain. But no, this couple teaches us that it is possible. We can discipline our senses for the greater good, for God's greater glory. And, I think we are seeing with great encouragement that there are more and more couples that are striving to be heroic in this sense. I think in general, men really need to step it up, especially because I think a lot of women have lost their trust in men. This is why I think we have this problem with abortion, because a lot of men have abandoned their significant other to do what they will with the baby. But, even at my church, I think it's really beautiful that in the last 3 years, a lot of the dads have stepped it up and they've taken on to this program called Exodus 90, which calls on the man to become a better version of himself, either as a husband and father or as a future husband or even priest, right? So it's making the greater sacrifice, not for themselves, but for all the people around them that they find important in their lives. It's also, how do we grow in chastity, right? Because I think a lot of people realize this is an important virtue, but they don't know how to practically apply it. I think for one is to be very intentional what we do with our phones and our time. Teenagers, especially today, struggle with the virtues of purity. There is a real struggle with lust because of the easy access to adult content on their phones. But I want to encourage you to really seek transparency with a person you trust that takes their faith seriously. And also to consider going to confession regularly, right? Confession is the window to God's grace that will really help anyone who perseveres. God, when he invites you to a fullness with him, does not leave you to suffer with this long-term addiction or even like long-term temptations, right? Over time, someone can definitely overcome at least the really bad temptations of seeing the content. And then also the need for someone to pray for their future spouse, right? This helps you to grow in chastity because while you're praying for them, you're reminded to also step it up, right? Like you want to be your very best for that future spouse. So likewise, as you entrust their soul, that the Lord, that Mother Mary, that Saint Joseph, and the other saints are encouraging them to be their very best, you too are then striving to be heroic. And then, of course, whatever we can do as a society to elevate the woman as a mother and a wife, I think is so important, because I think as a society, we've done away with the beauty of motherhood, right? Like motherhood is really escaped as like this secondary goal in life, or even a tertiary goal, right? Like the job comes first, and like the woman to kind of YOLO and do whatever she wants. But again, like for the men, it comes back to helping her see that there's so many things the world offers us. But in the end, if the man values her as the most precious person in his life, second to God, that there is a happiness that can only be found through their love in God, to seek God fully through the sacrament of marriage, right? And so let's encourage this, right? Let's help to increase the birth rate. Let us increase the marriage rate. Let's lower the divorce rate, and let's make this world a more beautiful society with organic marriages and devout couples. This will be a beautiful time, as Pope Benedict has shared, because we have come to shrink as a church, but to be in a sense purified. But now let's push back out in this apostolic age and help one another to become saints. All right, guys, that's it for tonight or today. That is it for Heroic Marriages. I'll catch you later. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. You share a like if you like this. And there's more when it comes to the K Church.